Want to make a podcast? Spotify's got a platform that lets you make one super easily, then distribute it everywhere, and even earn money. We like that. All in one place for totally free. It's called Spotify for Podcasters, and here's how it works. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit podcasts right from your cellular telephone or your computer, so no matter what your setup is like, you can start creating today. Then you can distribute your podcast to Spotify and everywhere else, those other places that podcasts are heard.
Video podcasts are also available on Spotify, and when you want to take conversations with your fans to the next level, Q&As and polls are the best way to get them talking. With Spotify for Podcasters, you can earn money in a variety of ways, including ads and podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free, zero catch. We've been using it ever since we started How Long Gone. And ever since I discovered Spotify for Podcasters, I feel like having the option of turning off the Q&As and the polls on the user dashboard has really helped boost my creativity and take it to another level. I highly recommend giving it a try. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. Buongiorno, this is Jason. I'm recording this part of the podcast solo because I am solo away from Chris in Arizona. I was unable to record today's interview with him because I was out into the middle of nowhere hiking it up and with no service. Unfortunately, the way my vacay schedule worked out, no pod. But this is making me realize this is 81 episodes we've done of this show, which is, about a year and a half's worth of podcasts in less than, in just like 4 or 5 months, which is great. So hopefully this is a rare occurrence where we're podding solo. But Chris hopefully will be able to handle it. The guest is Ryan Duffy, an old friend of his, so they can just banter and have, two guys talking about whatever bullshit they want to talk about. Ryan has done a lot of cool stuff in his life, including he was the guy who went to North Korea to play basketball with Dennis Rodman when he was hanging out with Kim Jong-un. So that alone, I'm very sad that I was not able to hear about. But I'm in Sedona. I'll give you Sedona scene report. Drove out here yesterday from LA. It took about 6.5 hours. It's hot as fuck. Sedona is a very, very cool place, actually. It looks like a fake city. There's no, there's not really much going on here other than Republicans riding mountain bikes and then, the people who grew up here being okay with it. There's a place that we went to eat dinner at called Rotten Johnny's Pizzeria. And it sounds terrible, but it's probably the one of the better restaurants in town, unfortunately. A fine wood-fired shrimp on the Caesar, if that's what your flavor is and you're going to be out here in Arizona. I think Arizona as a whole does suck dick for sure, but Sedona, I could see myself living here. We rented an Airbnb, pretty big house. It's maybe like 3 or 4 bedrooms, big yard, pool, huge kitchen, big old master bathroom with a huge tub. I'm in like one of the offices, and you could buy this house for under $300,000. Crazy ass view of the mountains. It's nice as fuck. So maybe I will retire here and become a mountain biker. Hopefully one day. We went to a hike today that I recommend called the Hike to the Crack at Wet Beaver Creek, and that is a real name. There is a place called Wet Beaver and there is a place called Dry Beaver here in Sedona. Don't go to Dry Beaver, there's not much to check out, but the Wet Beaver is really cool. It's a 7-mile hike total, which is nothing to sneeze at, and then it ends up in a watering hole. But it was nice to go to a watering hole that isn't like an LA or a Southern California watering hole where it's just like fucked up stagnant water with undesirable animals and people wading in it and peeing and stuff. It was actually nice and clean and crisp. People diving. I never understand people who jump off of the big rocks 100 feet into the water. I see I see Diplo and his friends in the major lasers jumping off of buildings and rocks that are 100 feet tall and doing backflips and landing. I don't really get any enjoyment out of that. It seems way too scary and dangerous, and you land on hurt your head or something. It's a bad idea, but it was nice to swim in a real swimming hole. I did not have water shoes or aqua socks. That was bad. And we did do some cool content creation that nobody will ever see. I did get to take some mushrooms out here. Mushrooms are great. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to take a full eighth, though, because there's too much going on in my mind to be able to handle that. But when I did do mushrooms when I was younger, I would only take a full eighth, and I would do things like drive my car around Orange County and pretend that my Honda Accord was a tour bus tram, and I would give my friends a tour of the city, which looking back is one of the worst, dumbest things you could ever do. Truly, like I would be sitting at a red light and it would be on fire, and I drove a stick and it was fine. But I can't do that now. I would just jump off of a building or something probably, which is a bummer. I did visit the Sedona McDonald's. It's the only McDonald's that has teal blue arches to match the decor of Sedona. I was finally able to track down the Travis Scott burger named after the rapper Travis Scott. I tried to get one last week outside of San Bernardino, and the quarter pound lit meat patty was sold out. I tried to order the Travis Scott burger with a filet of fish patty instead of the quarter pounder patty, and they said, "Give me a minute, I have to check." And they came back about 5 minutes later and said they don't have a way in their system to handle that type of request. So didn't work out, but worked out seamlessly today. I hate McDonald's. It is bad food for bad people. But I had to do it in the name of content. Not too bad. The bun itself looks so perfect that it becomes not delicious looking or tasting. It just looks like a fake thing. It looks like the color, the golden brown, has been airbrushed on it, and the sesame seeds have been placed on one by one with a pair of tweezers. But the burger itself, not bad. The bacon on it was very crispy. It needed to be crispy, and it delivered. The 2 slices of cheese was La Flame style, and that did prove to be a winner. But the best part about it for me was the sweet, kind of acrid tang of the pickle really brought the spicy barbecue to life. The one downside for it, that doesn't make sense to me, like living in LA, the In-N-Out double or just an In-N-Out burger is sort of like the benchmark, the gold standard of what every other burger should be judged against, because it's like pretty perfect, and it costs like $3 or something like that. The Travis Scott burger, it was over $6 with tax and everything. I don't think McDonald's food should cost twice as much as In-N-Out food. That doesn't make any sense. I will never go back to McDonald's again, and neither should you. But I had to do it. I plan on writing a full, maybe 1,000 word, detailed review of the Travis Scott burger. Just as an emotional exercise. But we will be back to our normally scheduled pods. I'll be back in LA tomorrow, and then we'll do a one-on-one on, ready to go for Monday. Thank you guys all for listening. And also this episode, with Chris and Ryan, the first 10 minutes of their convo, maybe like 8 minutes or something, got cut off because somebody wasn't recording correctly. So I'm just going to edit it, and they're just going to kind of hop in and start talking about cool shit. So thank you guys for listening to me doing a solo ramble. I'm going to go take more mushrooms and lay around in the pool for the next few hours, and then eat some pizza from Rotten Johnny's. Bye-bye.
Oh, what's going on, losers? It's Chris Black, half of the How Long Gone dynasty. My illustrious co-host, Big Slim, Big TJ Stretch, is actually lost in the desert in Sedona. finding himself. He might be on mushrooms. I don't even know. So today, it's just going to be me. It's going to be Chris Black, and I'm going to be talking to a dear friend of mine, a guy I've known for probably 20 years, Ryan Duffy. Ryan is a journalist, producer, and director of television. You might recognize him as the host of the original Vice TV show. Most remarkably, he played basketball in North Korea with Dennis Rodman, the Harlem Globetrotters, while Kim Jong-un looked on. He has a new show on Netflix called Home Game. It's a docuseries that explores traditional sports from around the world. It's really interesting, really fun to digest and kind of check out what other countries, deem as sport. But Ryan and I have known each other since we were both, very young and very, into partying. So I'm sure he'll be able to regale you guys with some tales of stupidity. But he's forged a really nice career for himself in television, specifically in the sports arena, which is something that I obviously don't understand or care about, but I love to see my friends succeed. Without further ado, we'll give Ryan a call and pray for Jason. Hopefully he finds some water. Hopefully he finds himself. Hopefully he can finally crack open that pesky third eye. Why do we expect things from these corporations? Like they don't care. Like they don't care about anything except making money. That's what corporations are here for.
Right. Like that's fundamentally what that thing is. Now, if we don't think if there's a more radical line of thought that says that like Facebook has become so large, and maybe Amazon, maybe Microsoft, maybe whoever, right? Some group of the big tech firms have become so large that they actually should be public utilities, and we should think of them differently. Cool. I'm here for that. I'm not smart. I'm not smart enough to make that argument, but I'm here for it. I'm interested in it. But right now, that's not how they're built. They're built to reward their shareholders and grow their profit margins, and that's what they're out here doing. So when they let us down in the broader kind of moral arena, you're like, well, there's nothing nothing to incentivize them to behave that way.
No, I mean the Zucker. I mean it's also like celebrities. I think this week are like we're not using social media for 24 hours in protest, and it's like guys, what the fuck do you think that's going to do? Like what on earth do you think that's going to do and prove to anyone? Because you're going to be on it. As soon as it's like fasting for 24 hours and then eating a pizza. Like that doesn't really do anything. Like it has to be a bigger change. You have to change your diet. You have to change your diet. You can't just do it for one day.
But that's also like that is like the fundamental like lizard brain flaw. I mean, there's a lot of them in like our engineering as humans, and you and I fucking know this better than most. Is like people who've had our dalliances with substances, right? Is that like we are from a neurological standpoint, we are engineered to want quick gratification and not to invest in long-term solutions or delayed gratification at all. So if someone says, hey, Facebook is doing this thing, but if you just bail for a day, or hey, if you post this particular image on Instagram for today, that'll demonstrate your support. You're just like, oh great, quick fix, immediate gratification. Good, go, right? And like I sympathize with that, like fighting the fight against immediate gratification is one of the themes of my life.
Now that you put it that way, I think I understand. Yeah, I mean, no, I do. I mean, I think it's like a hive mind. Like I want to be a part of this, and I do think it comes. The thing is that I do think it comes from a good place. Like I don't think these people. I just don't think people are thinking critically because, the world is hemorrhaging, and whatever they can do to place a Band-Aid on that, they want to participate in, which I think that, especially when you have the kind of following these people have, that's respectable. I just think that the end game is not, nothing's going to happen, is my point. Like, it's a good idea in theory, and in practice, the returns are minimal to none.
But you know what, dude? In a weird way, I almost just came full circle on that.
You're for it now. You're good on it now.
Well, in the great words of the immortal Ian MacKaye, at least I'm fucking trying. What the fuck have you done? Right? Like
that's true. I mean, no, that's a good point.
Who am I to sit here and impugn people's motives? Like, even if it's short-sighted, even if it's a one-day thing, it's a thing. You're doing something, and the alternative is nothing, which is what my lazy ass is sitting here doing, impugning the motives of people who are doing something. So, fuck me.
No, I think as a person who's perennially logged on, I form opinions that are but that I think that's where now that I don't get high, I think my instant gratification is giving opinions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's like I'm so quick to react, and I think sometimes that's good and sometimes it's bad. But with stuff like this, I'm immediately turned off to it, and it's like, Chris, you need to take a step back and think about what's the real problem here? Like, is this really is this really doing anything but attempting to be good? Because otherwise, there's no reason to think negatively about it.
Right. Well, and I know that you're theoretically asking me questions, but if I may turn the tables for a moment.
Theoretically, yes, very theoretical.
I am interested in your social media hierarchy. It is really funny that we're spending the first 20 minutes talking about social media, which is something I don't participate in. But it's because it's generational, right? In the most basic sense, in the sense that like TikTok obviously is for people who are 20 years younger than us. Facebook is for people who are about 10 years older than us. And that leaves us as people in our mid to late 30s kind of firmly in what I guess is like that first wave or whatever, right?
We're the generation that remembers dial-up. We're the generation who had internet first, but we remember a time where it didn't exist.
But for you in particular, it's fair to say that Twitter is your medium of choice, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, that is fair to say, and I have chosen that, and I'm sticking with it.
Right, and which is, it's also fair to say that that's atypical, right, generationally for us. Or am I wrong on that? Are there?
I actually think it's more about it's first age and generational, and then second industry wise. So I think as a member of as a card carrying member of the New York media elite, I do think I think that I don't speak for all of us, but I speak for a lot of us when I say Twitter is the chosen medium. Because it's more of a transference of, ideas and opinions versus images. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which is, but look, I use Instagram all the time. I love it, but I don't feel like I'm able to, I don't express myself. I feel like I'm able to express myself more wholly and fully on Twitter. That is the medium that is best for me as a person.
Yeah, I guess that's right. It divides first and foremost generationally, but then within generations it divides, I guess, by like professional inclination, right?
Yeah, but like I've also never used like Twitter. For me has been actually like it's benefited me positively. Like I've definitely gotten jobs and things like it's the same reason that I write. You know what I mean? It's not about money. It's about like I like to do it, and it brings an awareness to myself and my work that I control. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's brand building, baby. Let's just, if we want to really take it down to the studs, it's just brand building. You know what I mean? But it's like that in Instagram. It's like, I don't, I'm not going to post a selfie like that. The way to make money on Instagram are things that that don't appeal to me. So therefore I use it the way that I see fit.
And that's the thing that has really, if we're being honest about it, has really kept me from Instagram is like, I don't, and I know this isn't really what Instagram is anymore, but in the early days where Instagram really was, like, here's the sunset, here's my breakfast plate, and here's me and Bob on a hike, right? Like
the glory days is what we call that, but yeah.
Like, I never felt comfortable with that, and I know that now it is far more, like, people have figured out some pretty nuanced and sophisticated ways to use that platform, but like...
Do you not scroll it?
I do scroll it, but pretty infrequently. Like, I know that it's a pretty habitual scroll for a lot of people. I'll pick it up 2 to 3 times a day.
Jason called me on the last episode the Golden State Scroller, and I thought that was very, very clever. But my screen time is absolutely through the fucking roof. Like, so it's depressing.
I've heard you say that before. What does that mean when you get like the alert at the end of the week? What are we talking about hours per day?
8-9 hours.
Wow. So let's break that
between 6 and 9 probably is the usual range.
Between 6 and 9, but is that because are you almost never in front of a larger screen? Like, are you
Ryan, I wish that was the case, but but most days, like at least since I've been in LA, like I would say the screen time is a little bit less because I'm just kind of out and about on the computer itself. But yeah, I think that like in the morning I use the computer for a couple hours, like pretty heavily, and then for the rest of the day it's phone. So whether it's social media, obviously email, like I'm on Slack for public announcement stuff. So like I'm using, it's not just social media, but Instagram is definitely, 50% or something of that time when you look at the breakdown.
Yeah. It is the easiest one when you're just like waiting online or doing, I don't know that we all do that anymore, but.
I use it more at this point though. I just am like accepting of that's who I am. You know what I mean? Like the way people beat themselves up and I need a digital detox, I got to get away from my phone. That's the other thing that I'm immune to. I don't get like jealous of people's lives. Like if I see somebody on a vacation, I'm like, good for them. If I see somebody, doing an ad, I'm like, good for them. I don't think about it like I want that to be me. Like that's not how I use it. So I think I'm lucky in that way. Because I do think it's really negative for a lot of people. I'm just not, for whatever reason, I'm just not one of those people.
Yeah. And there is also this inclination that we all have, right? Of like, the pendulum swing in response to something is almost always an overcorrection, and that's true of like politics, cultural norms, or anything else. That's like our kind of back to the hive mind thing you were talking about before. But like it does get to this place too. And again, I'm going to end up taking a position that sounds like pro social media, despite my own reluctance. It does get to a place where like it's so easy to point out what's wrong with it, and it's so easy to point out like its ill effects on society, which are real and true.
Totally.
But like it is also revolutionary. Like
I know.
Far beyond, and like far beyond just like our own day-to-day enjoyment, but like. The fact that we are all connected to each other at the fucking press of a button, the fact that I can really dial up almost any esoteric kernel of knowledge that mankind has ever accumulated over its entire civilized existence. I can just have a curiosity about it, and within 6.5 seconds have the answer at my fingertip. That is insane. We do not fully process how fucking
and we won't.
insane
We
that
won't.
is.
We
No,
won't.
it's too big. It's too big for our lizard brains.
On a day to day too. I mean, even thinking about this podcast, I mean, like a lot of these guests are I would say most of this is done via social media. You know what I mean? Whether it's a person I'm friends with, or it's once removed, or even if it's somebody that's like a celebrity or whatever, like you can get in touch with these people for better or worse. You know what I mean? So it's like on a day-to-day basis, I'm using it, I'm using it like everyone else for fun, but like it does creep into like a true work thing beyond just like, like awareness or brand building. You know what I mean? It's actually nuts and bolts, like some work stuff. Which again, like that, what's not to like? You know what I'm saying? Like that for me, like what's not to like? But I do think that, but I agree with you. I think that it's so big at this point, we're only focused on the negative virtues of it, which are all real. But I do think the positives, especially like, the way you're describing is almost like we put a man in space kind of level shit, which I agree with. This is actually that crazy that we're all connected and that easily, and you can talk to anyone, blah, blah, blah. That's very real. And I do think that's like brushed aside because, people are sad they saw a hottie on vacation. It's like, I don't know. I don't think those things are equal or fair, but I do think that but like you said, it's a pendulum swinging. It's a huge backlash. Like when social media was first taking hold, we thought it was the greatest thing that ever happened to us. 10, 15 years later, it's the worst thing that ever happened to us.
Of course.
So it's like, what, it's like cigarettes or soft drinks or cocaine. You know what I mean? It was a medical use. It was great for you. It was fine. It's no problem. And then we look into it a little harder. And we're like, shit, actually, I think this is killing us. You know what I mean? So it's truly all of that. It's all of that stuff like wrapped into one.
Right. It's all of it. It is of course neither black nor white, but it's the shades of gray. But it is interesting too, though. I will say just the last thing on this is like you made the point earlier, which is everyone thinks their own generation is so important and has such an interesting perspective. It is interesting to me that we are the last generation, or the generation, I guess, that really does have like the digital divide halfway through our lives, in the sense that like I firmly remember growing up, going to the library, needing to figure out the Dewey Decimal System, and like needing to get information in this like really fucking tactile, step-by-step kind of way. And then I remember dial-up. I remember getting AOL in high school and screen names and chat rooms and all that shit. And now I think we've had it for long enough that like it has become, you know, we're not digital natives, quote unquote, but like it has become deeply ingrained in a way that we are super comfortable and kind of conversant in it. And that is like a really interesting dual perspective to have.
We're the only, I mean, I think that, you know, TikTok is the ultimate divide of that.
Are you on, like, do you have TikTok?
No,
Are you on TikTok?
No, I'm just like, Snapchat too. I just didn't care about those. They just didn't hit for me, don't matter. And I think that, like, TikTok to me feels deeply generational, where it's like, if you're 18, like, that's all you care about. That's all you use. You know, like, Instagram is for your parents. You know what I mean? So it's the same kind of thing as what Facebook became.
I'm curious about TikTok too. I'm not gonna.
Well, I'm curious about it from a fucking money making standpoint, because it's like, and it's all obviously it's all wrapped up in the Chinese. You know, it's such a big political story now too.
God, yeah.
But it's. I mean, you know, people send me videos. I watch videos that I'm sent, or I see other places, and it's fucking funny. But it reminds me more of Vine, where it's like I never used Vine, but I would look at, like, I would see enough Vine in my life where I felt like I understood it. I think TikTok is. I think TikTok's a little more complicated than that, and I think that. I mean, look, the New York Times has a technology reporter, Taylor Lorenz, who covers TikTok like exhaustively.
Yeah,
it's that big. You know, it's that big.
She's great, by the way. I don't know her, but
dude, she's gonna come on the show. But she's like, yeah, I mean, dude, it's like, to me, I'm like, this is so fucking dorky, and it's all these nerds. But it's also like, this is a multi-million-dollar business. It's youth culture. It's sex. It's, you know, it's kind of everything in one.
Yeah,
and I think that, but those people aren't famous to me the same way like YouTubers aren't famous to me.
Right.
You know, so it's like, you can tell me they have X amount of followers and show me a picture of them and they're great looking and in great shape, but I still am like, I don't know who the fuck this guy is.
Yeah.
He looks like any other fucking West Side rich kid in LA that has an Audi. You know what I mean? Nothing changes for me, but I do think that to me is the ultimate divide. That particular program, and maybe Snapchat was the precursor to that.
Well, that's the other thing too, right? Is I almost feel like I don't have to. I'm curious about TikTok, but I feel like I don't have to really invest in understanding it, because ultimately it's going to get steamrolled by Reels or whatever, right? The imposter clone that Zuck will build and just, you know, roll over whatever else while TikTok itself becomes a political football. Because I think that's one of the other funny things that we like, accusations that we throw at these social media companies, which again are true, but are just a little bit off base from like what they are, which is like, oh, there's not a lot of innovation in Silicon Valley anymore. There's not a lot of innovation at Facebook. They're just you know, copying other people's products and businesses and rolling it out. Yeah, they are, and usually it's the second guy in the door who makes all the money, and the first guy, you know, lays a bunch of ground. And I'm not talking about tech; I'm talking about anything, right? Like, it usually pays to be second or third, because the pioneers are out there, kind of, you know, breaking new ground or whatever, and that's fantastic. But they're usually out ahead of the culture. And then by the time, kind of, you know, the second wave, second guy in the door comes, there's financing that comes with it. So ultimately, I feel like I'll end up engaging in whatever it is that makes TikTok so great, in the form of, I think it's called Reels, right? Isn't that the Instagram version?
That is the Instagram. Yeah. I mean, I think that is, I mean, I think it's already a failure. You know what I mean? But like, I don't, that is, what are they going to do? You know what I mean? But Instagram did that to Snapchat. They ate their lunch. Exactly. You know what I mean? So it's like, these guys, innovating isn't the point anymore, I think, for some of them. I think just getting to market with something strong is the point, which I see that totally. But I did want to talk about getting into TV, because I think you've had I think a lot of people would love to get into TV, Hollywood, but I think your path, I mean, that was never your plan. So I think falling into it is even more interesting.
Yeah, and funny to go from talking about social media, the content wave of the future, to TV, which we've all been saying and reading, and being assured that TV was dying for the last 20 years, and it is not dead. It takes new shapes and forms. I mean, it's not going anywhere. But yeah, TV is and I think it means a different thing now, right? I think people now are very comfortable to use TV as the catch-all term to describe not just television, but television, broadcast, cable, the way we traditionally thought of it, as well as OTT, streaming, etc. All these things. It basically just means like longer form video content.
That's true. TV really does mean longer form video content.
That's it. That's really it. But yeah, man. I did kind of stumble into it in the sense that like it was, I started at Vice way back when I was 19, I guess. And that was like, I mean, you know this well. This is where we met, but it was a print magazine once a month, and it was barely a print magazine once a month. And there were, it was 9 or 10 people, shared office with 555 Soul, arguments about like, no, I need this closet for, my denim versus like my boxes of print magazines. And that was the lay of the land. And I was an intern. I was at NYU at the time, and I was 19. And, fast forward, I stuck around Vice throughout my college career, and by the time I graduated, they were ready to hire me, and I came on board full time, and was just kind of plugging holes, right, in the way that like you do when you don't know how to do anything particularly well. You're just like
yes.
the blunt force object at 22 years old, where they're like, okay, you're in charge of distributing magazines and selling some ads to record labels and writing some music reviews and sweeping up the floors because the front door is broken. And at that time, there were still actually prostitutes and Johns in Williamsburg along that Kent Ave truck route, and you need to clean out the used condoms that are there every month.
What a different time,
What a different time.
As a Brooklyn hater, even I'm wistful for that era. But yes. Continue.
But so basically, it's just a small enough company at that point in time that like everyone kind of does everything. And a couple of years into my tenure of doing all of those things and a few others that fell onto my lap, it was like, all right, we think that there's an opportunity here to make some video for the internet, because that's going to be the new thing now that the distribution pipes of the internet are such that we can actually make and
do this and
distribute video. Yeah, let's do it. And it wasn't any. I'd love to say that it was like either foresight or skill, that I was like, I could like see around the corner and go like, hey, I think this is internet on, video on the internet is going to be pretty big, or that I was particularly good at it. It was neither. I think it was like, there were 20 of us at the time, and I raised my hand faster than the fucking guy behind me.
Yes. Yes. This was the VBS.TV era.
Yes, the VBS, Vice Broadcasting System.TV, which was the first Vice. There was a Vice Guide to Travel, which was a DVD. VBS was kind of born out of that. It was a joint venture with Viacom, where they gave the company a couple bucks to kind of experiment in online video, and then that VBS was, for all its successes and failures, the eventual launch of a pretty big YouTube channel, the eventual launch of Vice.com, the eventual show on MTV, which came out of it, that initial joint partnership around VBS, and then the MTV show turned into the HBO show and all that stuff. And I kind of hung around for all those things and was doing all of them, mostly in the beginning as kind of an on-camera correspondent. But in terms of actually taking what was at that time kind of nights and weekends, because I still had like a day job at Vice. I still had a desk job. And then we would kind of do this, in a moonlighting capacity. Whereas now, fast forward 20 years and I sit out here in LA. I've been out of ice for 7 or 8 years at this point, and TV is my job, and it's my job in a way that is much more holistic. Because what I eventually figured out about like the on-camera stuff is like it's cool and it's fun, and I still do some of it for the right projects, but it's also pretty limiting in the sense that like the more you know about television, the more you realize that like that job usually, and there are exceptions, usually doesn't have a lot of say-so. Like you're kind of
you show up and do what you're told to an extent.
Pretty much, and like I'm sure there are a lot of on-air correspondents who are deeply involved in the shaping of the stories they're reporting on and the like. Yeah. But like, for me, balancing a few other jobs there and whatever, I never felt like I was getting in early enough. And I never
in the process.
Yeah, I was showing up to help execute other people's ideas, which at the age of 25 is probably all you should be doing. Yeah. But when you start to have some ideas of your own, you start to go, well, how does this sausage actually get made? So now I'm I kind of like to think I can do a few different things. I produce some shows, I direct some shows. I still do the on-air correspondent things here and there. But basically I tried to get good enough, not great at any of them, but good enough at like the 3 to 4 jobs that seemed interesting to me that I could kind of just say yes to whatever I wanted to do and fit in there in a way that whatever the project demanded,
Yeah, I mean, I think that you and I have been friends for a very long time. I know you pretty well. The thing that we don't relate on is sports. I can give a shit, and it's not like you talked about it all the time with me or anything over the years. But I do think that, I think that at least what I remember, a big coming out for you was when you played the basketball game in North Korea. Like, and that was and Kim Jong-un was there, and Dennis Rodman was there, and the Harlem Globetrotters, this whole thing. That was like a big story, and you were physically playing basketball, which I think is because I think that's like when I just did this underwater workout with these like Marines for GQ, and they said to me, no one ever does the workout with us. They want to write about it and talk about it, but no one ever does it with us. You know what I mean? And I think that when you were doing that felt very participatory in like a George Plimpton way, but it was a little more extreme because of obviously the situation, the timing. But I do think that the sport thing, that's where it at least for me, it starts in some way. Because now that's mostly what you focus on.
Yeah, a lot of my projects now, not all of them, but a lot of my projects now are in sports. And that's funny too, like unscripted sports. So sports documentaries and sports series. I just did this show for Netflix called Home Game, which is like sports cultures around the world, a little bit of a nod to like the wide world of sports on ABC in the 70s, that kind of stuff. Which is funny in and of itself, right? Because on one hand, like, yes, sports is, I am like a deep, somewhat maniacal sports fan. Like, I've scheduled my day today around a Boston Celtics playoff game, and I mean that really seriously. Like, I have literally in the calendar a block, and it's like no call. I get back on the phone afwerds, and I've got work I'll do afterwards.
You're a great guy. You're a hard worker. I get back on the phone after I spend 3 hours watching a basketball game in the middle of the day.
Well, dude, the middle of the day thing I've been out in LA now for 3 years, pretty much exactly. I still can't figure out, like, tip-off time for my entire life for basketball games was 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and now it's rolling in here at 4:30. I'm waking up on Sundays, and NFL kickoff is at 10 a.m., and I'm trying to have my coffee. Like, that is still fucking me up.
I really feel for you. I really feel for you, bro. I really feel for you, man.
That's not even, like, people talk about, like, champagne problems or first world problems. This is a more obnoxious version. I don't even know what the right term is, but, like, nobody enjoyed me saying that. But anyway, that is a problem I'm dealing with in my life. But anyway, sports, yes, because I deeply love it, and I have since I was a little kid, has become a big focus of what I do. But it also is that I'm sure you feel this in some ways, that kind of self-perpetuation machine that you get when you're, at this point, we're all in our mid-30s, our friend group, we've been doing whatever it is that we've chosen to do for, 10, 15 years, depending on how long it took to figure out. And in some ways, you just end up doing more of what the last thing you did was. And I'm not saying I don't like doing the sports stuff. I really do. But like, it becomes hard to fight against the tide because the opportunities become self-selecting in a way. Someone watches your last show and goes, oh, okay, this is the sports guy. Great. Here's my idea for the sports thing.
I think in this case, too, I think that genre has exploded. Like the sports doc thing, like I said, as a person who doesn't give a fuck about sports, the amount of, ESPN 30 for 30 or E60 documentaries I've watched is a high number. So I do think the appetite is there now, too.
That's a great point. And that's the other part that like it filters into how much sports stuff I've done of late, which is like, don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? Like it is sports docs are at the intersection of two really powerful forces. One of which is just the boom of documentaries, in large part credit due to Netflix over the last, say, 10 years, right? Where all of a sudden docs have gone from like this weird little silo on PBS and like, the Ken Burns world of, to what they are today, which is unrecognizable, right? And massive cultural phenomenons that in many ways outpace scripted content. So that's one trend line. And then that's getting married to something that's less of a trend line and more a mainstay, which is the unending popularity of sports, which you sit outside of.
But I'm not immune, though. I notice. The way that the country reacted when it was taken away from them was literally like it was more important than air or breathing.
Yes.
So I do recognize the importance. Some might say over-importance, but I'll leave that to them.
Oh, for sure. Look, I'm the same lunatic who blocks out my day for a playoff game, and even I know it's absurd. It is completely and totally absurd. But it's also so I think one of the things from a business standpoint that's happened is like that never-ending popularity, that growing popularity. And look, there's a lot of reasons for it. As television becomes less nationalized, right, less impacted by borders, when you do have streaming services like Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, etc., international markets become more important to your business. That involves a lot of translation, and a lot of those companies are really good at it, but it also involves just identifying things that transcend borders, and that's why you see stuff like, Bourdain, rest in peace, food, music, sports, these universal languages, become increasingly important. So then you have live rights, like the actual games themselves, become so fucking expensive. Like the amount of money that is spent on the contract to air 162 baseball games, a sport that nobody under the age of 62 gives a flying fuck about, and a television product that is terrible, right?
It is a terrible television product. It really is.
My God. It's awful. And you can't, it's hard. It's not even easy to program because the games have no structure. Like a soccer game, at least you go, okay, 2 45-minute halves. They add on a little injury time. Why don't we block out about 3 hours? Baseball just goes. It could be 2 hours long. It could be 5.5 hours long. And you have to figure out how to program your television network around it. It's so fucking dumb. But it remains this unbelievable cash cow to such a degree because it's so popular, and it's one of the few things that people actually tune into live television for anymore, award shows and specials and news and sports, right? But because those have become so expensive, kind of what I do, I don't do that, but what I do kind of rides the coattails of that in the sense that like people want sports on their network, but they cannot participate in the billions and billions and billions of dollars that goes into locking up the live rights. So that's where I kind of weasel in the door.
I never thought about that. I just thought sports were popular, but I agree. But this is a symptom of that, basically. Like, it's so popular,
this is the downstream effect. Yeah.
But it's so expensive to air real sports that they have to have programming that is, well, I mean, arguably that's interesting too, because it's more appealing to a wider swath of people, in my mind.
That's the hope, right? Is that, like, even if you don't watch the game, if we do some, whether it's, it's called like the sports shoulder programming or sports adjacent or, just sports doc generally, if we do that well enough and it becomes this character-led thing, which basically everything does at the end of the day, then who cares what you don't need to be invested in what color t-shirt the guy puts on after the fact and whether or not he scores 20 points or 2 points. Like, it's kind of neither here nor there if you become invested in kind of the character depth and drama, which is what most of this stuff redounds to.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only, I mean, like I would watch a third Lance Armstrong documentary at this point. You know what I mean? It's like, I just, that to me is a great example of, like, cycling on TV. I would never in 1 million years turn that on. There's no fucking way. Exactly. But he's such a monster that I can't get enough, And I'm very pro doping too, which is a whole nother podcast, I think, but I'm ready to let these guys go wild.
Oh, I kind of feel that way too. I actually wanted to ask you about this. And I felt that way. That I know less about I watched Icarus along with everyone else, and it's an absolutely stunning documentary. I know less about cycling, so when I think about, like, doping and performance enhancing, my reference is Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa. Which, let me pause there. Does that who those people?
Yeah,
are.
Of course.
Okay.
I mean, I played sports growing up.
I know.
But those guys were also the biggest star. But also, I mean, this goes to tennis too, like, which is the only sport I play or care about. And it's like, like, Rafael Nadal definitely is on something. It's an understood, but he's too big of a star, so they're going to let it rock. It's just like, these guys, it's just too crazy. Their bodies are there's just only so much you can do naturally.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Because I think you and I don't think have talked about this, but it sounds like we may have the same perspective on it, which is like, okay, and like, Kobe Bryant used to get a lot of shit for suspicion around a procedure he had in Germany, and I can't even remember the particulars, but it was like blood platelet removal. It was essentially like making your legs younger, right? Through some voodoo or other. And I was kind of like, okay, but the idea here is that we all love Kobe. The NBA is a better product when he's playing, and all he's doing is just trying to elongate the window that he's able to do that. So why are we mad?
Everybody wins. No, I agree. I mean, I think there are some people that really care about, fairness. And I think that, but at the top of the pyramid in sports, from my understanding, is money. So, you need your stars. It's the same thing with Nadal. It's like, look, like, he's a superstar. We can't ban him from a year of majors. Like, that's just not that's not possible for us to do. So, we're going to let it rock. And whether it's 100% confirmed or it's like, we're pretty sure, like, it doesn't really matter. We're just going to look the other way.
And this goes back to, I think, what we were saying about, like, Facebook and all this stuff, which is like, at the end of the day, and I'm taking this, like, real hard pro-capitalism stance on this podcast, which is, I did not expect to take. But I'm not saying whether this is a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying it is the thing. The NBA is a business. Facebook is a business. The NBA is a business. The World Tennis Association is that. I don't even know if that's the governing body.
No, it's all. Yeah, I mean, these guys, and it's not all. It's also like a staggering business. You know what I mean? It's
staggering. Yes.
And I think the NFL is the one that gets the most, you know what I mean? Like that to me is the most, like, thing, the one that's talked about the most as far as it's kind of, I don't know if unfairness is the word, but just like discrepant. I don't know. It just seems like that governing body and that system is talked about more than any other sport.
A disaster.
Because it's so bad.
It's so bad, and it's a few different things. They cannot get out of their own way, right? Like, they are, first off, it's the sport itself, which is the most violent of the
do you think it'll go away in our lifetime?
No, I am my
same.
My one of my underlying beliefs about the world is momentum is a motherfucker.
Totally.
And it is, and it explains a lot more about our culture than we'd like to think. Because it's so simplistic. But football is the most popular sport in America is football. Do you know what the second most popular sport in America is?
I actually don't.
College football.
Damn, that's fucked up, actually.
Right. So when you think about and that includes the NBA, which has had an unbelievably great last decade, even 2 decades, right? You can look at the whole, you can trace it back to Jordan and say that 30-year run or whatever. The NBA's done great. Soccer has expanded. The UFC is kind of on the come.
Soccer's never going to happen in this country.
I stand by this.
It'll never happen. And I think football will continue to happen because there are a lot of parents who just don't give a fuck. It's a paycheck, you know what I mean? And I think that's some of the issues, obviously, is who that benefits and who it doesn't benefit. And I think the argument about paying college, that stuff actually interests me. The college athlete shit, those guys should be getting paid if you're making money off of them.
100%. It's insane that they're not paid.
That's very interesting to me. But the business side of it. It's similar to Hollywood for me though. I don't even care about the product sometimes. I want to hear about the deal and the agent and the distribution and all of that stuff. That appeals to me in the same way that it does with sports, whether you follow, the players or not. But I do think that the documentary side, the stuff that you're doing and what you're working on is the most appealing to the biggest group of people, which I feel like is a good sign.
Yeah, it's the accessible, the gut check it with my mom, who has never sat down to watch a game with me, but will sit down and watch most of the shows that I end up making, because at the end of the day, you don't really need to be the sports fan to watch.
That's what I think streaming has really done too, is given a place for that stuff to live. But Now, what is out right now that people can watch?
Oh, a lot of stuff is in the works. It's the COVID production freeze.
Did everything just stop for you? Is that how it works?
Yeah, pretty much. It's thawing now, which is good, I think. I mean, we'll see. And it's coming back. I have a shoot on the 28th, which is in 11 days, which is the first real. We've skirted by and done a couple little low key things. This is the first full on, full crew.
What is this outside? Is this inside? What's the vibe?
We're gonna do the bulk of it outside, and you travel as few people as possible. And in this, I won't drag you into the weeds of this, but this is a scenario. This is an interview scenario where any other time prior to this, the interview subject is up in Washington State, and we would go, okay, so we'll come up to you, and we want to do this, in a location that's comfortable for you and kind of true to you and a cool backdrop. So we'll come up there a couple days early, scout it out, and then we'll bring the whole crew. We'll pick up a couple locals, and we'll just sit down with you and come back. No. Now the goal is to travel as few people as humanly possible. So we have to bring the subject down here. He has to quarantine for a short amount of time. Everyone has to be tested. There's COVID monitors on the set, and it's just it's
I'm
interesting.
I'm looking to become a COVID monitor. I think this is a good career path for me,
dude. I mean, it is.
I feel like it's a must-have. It pays pretty well, and you don't have to do much.
I don't know what they actually do. I think it's just literally someone who's walking around safety monitor style from high school going hey, get that mask up around your nose, and hey, do you need to be standing 3 feet from him to have this conversation?
No, totally. That's exactly what it is. It's literally the feds. It's dark.
Yeah.
So you're flying him down and you're doing it in whatever location you is safe.
Right. So we'll do all that, and there's a bunch of red tape and all that stuff, which is boring. And I should be grateful to be working again, because I haven't in quite some time. I think I like a lot of people turned, everything shut down in March, and I think everyone who works in this industry went, oh, okay, I'll do development. I think the running feeling for a lot of people is you get so busy with production that you lag on your development and you don't have the next idea ready to go when your existing show ends. So I think I and a lot of people went, okay, great. I'm going to just work on development and rights acquisitions and decks and sizzle reels and all this shit.
3 months, 4 months in, you're like, okay,
exactly. And
I'm out of ideas. I've done
I have developed
all the ideas I have are decked.
every bad idea I've ever had. And now I want to start shooting again. So I'm happy to have it back. But there's stuff out there that came out right before the lockdown. That show Home Game I mentioned is 8 episodes on Netflix, sports cultures around the world, kind of unknown local games and the interesting people and places that you meet when you go to look at them. And then I've been directing a few things here and there. This is a football doc that I'm directing next week. There's a Fox Sports documentary on a guy named Rick Ankiel. And that's a good example, by the way, the Rick Ankiel thing of like, it is a straight down the middle, to use a sports metaphor to talk about sports, story of a Major League Baseball pitcher. But you can do it in a way where the outcome of the game is kind of neither here nor there, and you end up telling this story. Rick had this a kind of mental block, basically, where he had something called the yips, which basically just means like he's a pitcher who forgot how to pitch on a real basic level.
That's crazy.
It's fucked up, dude. I'll send you the link. It's a wild story, but like, if you do that well enough, and it happened on a big stage, it happened in a playoff game, so like sports fans know that.
Oh, it
game.
happened live.
Oh, dude, it happened live, and it's tough to watch. He's 23.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
23 years old, or maybe even 22, world at his fingertips, like fire-throwing rookie phenom. Holy shit, Rick Ankiel, he's the future of baseball, out there in a playoff game, and all of a sudden he's just whipping balls around the stadium. They're just going everywhere but to home plate. And people are like, what the actual fuck's going on? And that was it. It just broke him. Like, it wasn't an injury. It wasn't, it was. So anyway, we did an hour-long doc about Rick last year for Fox that, I think even though that is a story that happened on the mound in a stadium in a very traditional kind of sports ecosystem, I think at the end of the day, it's a story about like, oh shit, this thing that I trained to do for my whole life, I'm now not able to do, and how do I pivot my life around that? Like, there's a lot of applications to that, So anyway,
no, totally. I mean, that's the, and I think for someone like me, I'm that stuff appeals to me, so I know it appeals to a lot of others. I feel like a lot of people in my life like sports, which I really tried to avoid growing up at an insane pace. But somehow, I think as we get older, we just you lose the angst and you're okay with liking football.
Yeah, that's the other thing too, is like that harsh dividing line we all drew in high school, where it's like, no, I can't watch sports. I listen to punk rock music.
Exactly.
Like
exactly.
I know that was. But hold on, before I know we're probably wrapping up. I'm actually curious about because you're now it seems full on into tennis, but I also believe from listening to some episodes, which is the way. But we've been friends for 2 decades, and I know more about your life from listening to your fucking podcast. But it sounds like you're dealing with some injuries, and I'm curious how you're maintaining. Because I'm in physical therapy now, and I've got a whole bunch of shit.
We could because you're a big runner. I mean, like, you're doing serious, and that's all you're doing right now, correct?
Well, it's the pandemic problem I think a lot of people are having, which is I was always running a lot, but I was mixing in Soul Cycle and some boxing and some tennis and whatever, and then all those things closed, so all I do is put on shoes and go run outside my house and beat up my old hips and knees. So what are you doing?
This story, well, I have pivoted to the Peloton, to be honest with you.
Did you buy a Peloton?
No, so where I'm staying in LA has 2.
Wow.
And so I'm able to, you basically, there's a gym here and the residents like book it out so they have an hour to themselves. So basically I'm seeing the trainer 3 days a week and doing that stuff. And then the other days I'm doing the Peloton for an hour or 45 minutes and then doing some weights on the Peloton and then playing tennis. So it's been, honestly, I made fun of the Peloton relentlessly when it came out. I said that was exercise for fat rich guys, which I still think it can be. You know what I mean? I still think it can be, but I do think they are poised because they're releasing all this stuff. Like they just announced a lower price bike. They're doing a different machine that's more treadmill, blah blah blah. I think that I do think the gym is going to. I don't think it's obsolete, but I think if I had the room, like my friends Jake and Adrian basically turned their guest room into a gym over this period. Yeah. They have a Peloton, they got a full set of kettlebells, they've got a Bosu ball, and it's great. You know what I mean? It's fully what you need. I just like to leave the house. That's my problem.
Yeah, it's funny. That's what kept me from. I have a bunch of friends who got Pelotons early on, even pre-pandemic, and were like, "Oh yeah, this is the future," or whatever. And my thing was a little bit like, especially out here, I might feel differently if I were still in New York, but especially in LA, I feel like I spend a lot of time in my house or in my car or by myself. And like Equinox and SoulCycle were like one of the few things I could reliably count on to like bump into another fucking human and have a 5-minute conversation.
I mean, we've ran into each other at Barry's and Soul Cycling. You know what I mean?
True,
it's like,
yeah.
But I got the offer from Barry's to come try their new Beverly Center parking garage class.
Ooh.
So we're gonna go on Saturday, and I'll let you know because I think it's like the full class because you don't have to have a mask on. They brought the treadmills out, the whole thing.
Oh, that's cool.
But I do think the kettlebell shit, I did that. I did all the stuff you were supposed to do during this. The only thing that's worked for me is the trainer. That's the only thing that has felt like inspiring and like I'm doing something new and he's teaching me all this different shit. That to me is worth every penny. Like it's money well spent versus, a gym membership or whatever, since we can't do that anyway.
Yeah. And didn't you wasn't there an injury you were rehabbing?
Yeah, from that's why I'm using the Peloton is because I got those crazy Nike 4% and they fucked my ankle up.
Dude, I'm having some real problems too. So I'm doing physical therapy and I'm not totally thrilled. I also the whole list of shit I'm trying to do is embarrassing. I got like a special knee and hip pillow that goes between my old clunky ass legs. But you were doing acupuncture, right? Can you talk to me about that a little?
Dude. Yes, it's a place here in LA called U Family Acupuncture. It's on Beverly. And I went there years ago and I was having back problems and it was just really great for me. So I went back and basically it's the full thing where they do the fascial scraping, you know what I mean, on the muscle. Ooh. And they also do cupping, they do acupuncture. So it's $85, you know what I mean? It's so affordable.
I'm paying more than that for this physical therapy. That's just supervised stretching.
I am a full acupuncture cupping. Like I subscribe to all of it. Like that, it's always worked for me. It's affordable. It's like non-invasive. I don't know. I've always been fine with that. And maybe I'm lucky because I haven't had like real injuries that would require surgery or something. But for stuff that's just kind of like annoying, you know what I mean? And like a problem, that is what I've found to work. And I highly recommend it. And I think that like, I don't know. It's always worked from my back to my calves to my ankle. It's just, people use it for skin, for fertility. Like there's so many uses for it. I just really back it. I would give it a try. I've never gone to physical therapy. I've never done that. So it's kind of like,
yeah, it's leaving me a little cold. I've never really done it, and it just hit a point in these last few months with the amount of running that my hip was just kind of. I felt like I needed to do something less.
I mean, running is the worst fucking thing for you, but nothing feels better. That's the fucking problem. It's 100% understood to be the worst thing for you, and it's absolutely the best thing feeling wise for me. Like the only other thing I'm getting that kind of pleasure from right now is like advancing with these rings that I'm using. So I'm like hanging upside down and doing all this shit I'm doing handstands and stuff I never thought I could do before. But that's a different feeling than just like running for an hour and feeling good when you finish.
I mean, that's it, right? It's the worst thing you can do physically and the best thing you can do mentally. And it's so cruel that it exists on that fucking
I don't know what what shoes do you wear?
I alternate. I was talking to Ben. You know Ben Rayner, right?
Ben Rayner just certified coach as of a couple days ago.
Dude, Ben Rayner is, by the way, like the reason I was talking to him is because I don't know if you fuck with Strava or you follow Ben on Strava.
Everybody loves Strava. I don't use that, but everybody loves it.
So I'm out there, clocking maybe, 30 miles a week, 35 miles a week, feeling pretty good about that. And feeling it, right? Going like, wow, if I ran 37 miles, my hip would fall out of the fucking socket. And then I'll just cruise over to Ben Rayner profile and my guy's at like 94 miles a week. Like,
it's crazy.
An output that I don't, crazy. And he's a dad, he's a working photographer. Like, I literally don't understand the mechanics of it, let alone.
I've said this to him. Because when I was running a lot early pandemic in Montreal, he was helping me a lot. Like, here's what you should do Monday, here's what you should do Wednesday, here's what you should do Friday. And it was a pretty light touch, but by the end I was running the furthest and fastest I'd ever run in my life.
Yeah, dude, he's a fucking guru at it. So back to your question, I had asked him about shoes and asked him about everything because he's obviously unlocked it. But he said that one of the important things that I had not been doing, but now I am, is alternating shoes.
Yes. I've heard this from him and others.
Yeah, so now I've got Nike Flyknits, the React Flyknits that I wear, and then I've got this broader base shoe that's a Saucony. I never know how to say that. Saucony?
Either one, I think it's fine.
Saucony.
You know, we're not sticklers on this podcast.
I appreciate that.
You know, we let things slide sometimes.
So I go back and forth between some Sauconys and some Nikes, and I don't know. I guess it's helping. Who knows what's a placebo and what's actually helping? But I'm telling myself that it's going to improve.
I need to. I mean, I got rid of I sent the 4% back to Nike and made them give me a refund, which I never do.
Wow.
I was just so upset because they look so fucking cool. You know what I mean? I love the way they look, but I'm interested. I mean, I got to. My ankle's feeling pretty good now. It's been like a month. I'm going to start easing back into it, I think. But I do this old age shit really ain't for me, bro. It's really, you know, it's taking a toll. And luckily, our problems are small and minimal. But you do feel it now. I definitely feel it differently than I used to.
That's the other thing is like there's the actual pain, there's the actual discomfort that comes from the hip and whatever, and then there's what we all know is the bigger issue, which is this is the age slapping us in the face.
Yeah.
We can wear whatever cool T-shirts we want and work in whatever young industries we want. We're fooling no one, and we're sure as shit not fooling our skeletons, which are collapsing around us.
That's true. Yeah, as the world collapses, my skeleton likes to match. Man, all right. Well, it's been really good to have you, Ryan. Good to catch up, and people can catch your stuff on Netflix.
Yeah. Home Game on Netflix, couple other shows coming out later this fall.
Don't follow him on social media.
No,
you won't find out anything about it.
That is the one time I'll be on social media. I'll be on the Ryan Duffy Instagram posting about the new shows this fall.
we love Hollywood, Ryan. Thank you for joining us. And I will talk to you soon.
Great to talk to you, bud.
Later, bro.
Later.